Hello, today we're going to be doing a menu for Valentine's Day. Since we cannot go out to have nice dinner, we're going to bring the nice dinner into our kitchen. I chose a menu that will be simple, easy, and delicious that you're going to enjoy with your Valentine's this year. We're going to be doing pork tenderloin with caper sauce and garlic, which is gonna be wrapped in puff pastry and baked in the oven for a delicious result. So I will start with introducing the ingredients for this recipe. I have a pork tenderloin over here that I washed and dried and put some salt and pepper on top of it, on both sides, of course. This we will be sauteing with a little bit of olive oil and then letting it cool before we wrap it in the puff pastry. For the sauce that comes on top of it before wrapping in the puff pastry, it's going to be the caper sauce, which includes capers, which is a berry. It's actually a bud of a flower of a bush called caper bush. It's delicious. It's normally those buds, they are pickled to become those capers which we're going to be using. I will crush them a little bit to get some juices and more flavor into the sauce. So just crack them a little bit. It doesn't have to be fine. We will continue to have the berries showing as whole berries. I have 1 shallot that I'm gonna chop. I have 4 cloves of garlic, and I have some fresh sage leaf. If you don't have fresh, you can also use dried sage, and you can use other herbs of your choice. It can be oregano, that goes really well as well. And then we're gonna be using lemon juice, and we're going to be deglazing the pan with some white wine. I chose Pinot Noir. You can do Chardonnay, but I think the sweetness of the Pinot Noir is going to complement this dish, and it's going to make it even better. So let's start. At this point, we're going to be searing the pork loin. I'm heating my pan over here. Into it, I'm going to put about a tablespoon or 2, depending on the size of your tenderloin, of olive oil. And we want to let the oil shimmer before we put the tenderloin inside. Now the tenderloin is a very soft and tender piece of the pork, and it comes in a narrow, long shape like that. I want to try to keep it shaped straight so I can wrap it nicely, and it's gonna look good when it's wrapped in the puff pastry. So as I said before, I peppered it, I salted it, and now I think my pan is hot enough and you can hear it. Don't get the urge to move it too much. Let it sear for about 3 minutes without moving it, and then flip it on all its sides and continue to do that until you have a nice crust that builds on top of it, and that crust is going to help keep the pork tenderloin juicy as we continue to bake it in the oven. So that crust that it builds, it locks in all the juices and deliciousness of the pork. It has been 3 minutes now, so I'm gonna turn it to the other side and see how nice, and it has a very nice golden crust on one side. I'm gonna do the same on this side, and then I'm gonna do it also on the side on the right and on the left. And in that same pan, which has already flavors from the meat itself, we're gonna deglaze it and make the sauce that is gonna go on top of this before wrapping in the puff pastry. I have done 3 sides right now. Sometimes the nether side is hard to stay straight up, so you can actually hold it with the tongs like that to make sure that you're doing all sides evenly. So at this point, I think we are good, and we are ready to go to the next phase. Now, just a little technique of how to chop the shallot. Since the shallots, it's rounded like onions, but normally in onions we cut it in half before you chop. What we can do is just make a little base for it to sit straight, and this way it's not rolling anymore. And we just horizontally, we slice all the way through, making sure your fingers are out of the way, of course. And then we hold it and we cut across, just like that, and then you cut it to small pieces. Now, shallot is a bulb that is between onion and garlic, so it has much milder flavor than an onion, but it has tiny hints of garlic in it. Now I have the shallots chopped and ready to be added. I'm gonna show you just the garlic and the secret fact about garlic. So many people, they say garlic just bothers their stomach and they cannot digest it very well, and it causes bloating. So the things I have been reading, it tells that if you slice the garlic and open it just like that, there is this part inside. This is the part that causes all the trouble. So we get rid of this, we get rid of trouble. Let's do that for the rest of them. I have 4 cloves right here. I'm gonna take out the center of it, and then I'm gonna just mash it. You can chop it the way we chop the shallot, or if you rather just use a garlic press, you can do that as well. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's all gonna be sauteed and almost melted down in the sauce. So at this point, we go this way. I keep them separate a little bit, the garlic and the shallots, because I'm gonna add the shallots first, and then I'm gonna add the garlic. The garlic burns very fast, so you want to add it next, so it doesn't get too dark that it turns bitter. Now I have the sage over here. I'm gonna show you how to add that into the recipe. I chiffonade the sage, meaning I pick the leaves off the stem and I stack them one on top of the other, like that, and then I just go slice them really thin with the knife to have this chiffonade. Now this part, it's up to you how much sage to use. I happen to love sage, so I'm gonna put the whole bunch, which is gonna be adding up into about 2 tablespoons of chiffonade sage. You can put less, you can choose another herb if you're not able to find any sage, or as I said before, you can also use dried sage, which you just crumble like that between your palms and add it into the recipe, and it adds a lot of flavor. And if you are using dried sage, use 1 tablespoon, because it you need to, the volume of the dried is a lot less. When it dries, it shrinks, but it still has a lot of flavor in it. So you don't need 2 tablespoons of dried sage. 1 tablespoon is gonna do the job. I came back to that same pan that I seared the pork tenderloin in. I have a little bit, tiny bit of olive oil left in it. I'm heating the pan again to bring it into temp. I'm gonna add about a tablespoon or two, again, depending on the size of your pork tenderloin in there. And then I'm gonna sear and I'm gonna saute the shallots, garlic, and sage. And at the end, I'm gonna add the wine to deglaze the pan. And at the very end, I'm gonna also add the capers, and I'm gonna let them boil together, simmer together until almost all the juices are absorbed into the sauce. When you see the foam building up, it means it's ready for the ingredients to start going in. So I add the shallots. Until they are almost translucent. Then I'm gonna add the garlic. Now we can see that the shallot is starting to gain some color. I'm gonna add the garlic and the sage. And you should smell the aromas. But I think I would like to add the capers because I like them also to break down before. I don't want them to boil in the wine. I want them to release some flavor and some of their juices into the garlic, sage, and shallots in here. And I can already smell them. And at this point, I'm gonna add the Pinot Noir inside. And a juice of half a lemon. Let them simmer until the juices are absorbed. At this point, I'm gonna add a tiny bit of salt, not too much because the capers are pickled and they are salty. You can taste it and see, adjust the salt. I will also add a little bit of pepper. And I'm gonna let you in on my secret ingredient at the end. What I'm gonna add to this to just bring everything together into a higher level of deliciousness. Now we see that it's almost absorbed all the liquids. My optional secret ingredient that my family loves is Dijon Mustard that have the seeds in it. And this is gonna go really, really well with this sauce and especially with the pork. So I'm gonna add it in, and to give it a tenderness a little bit, some sweetness, I'm gonna also add a tiny bit of butter, and I'm gonna turn off the heat and let those just slowly dissolve in this delicious sauce. And now we'll let it cool down completely, and then I'll show you how to put the whole thing together. Now let us assemble the pork. I have puff pastry, the same like the burek ones. I pushed it, stretched it a little bit to make it wider so it can create a better foil around the tenderloin. Now at this point, this is the sauce that we have done, the caper, shallot, and garlic sauce. I'm gonna dump this on the puff pastry. and I'm gonna spread it. Like that. And I'm gonna place the pork tenderloin on top, just like that. And I will wrap it around. Now I have extra here, so I need to get rid of some of it. And I make sure to pinch real tight so it doesn't open. And this is gonna be the bottom, so I will just fold it like this, and at the end, after it's baked, we can get rid of the edges, although many people, they like the edges because things are gonna ooze into it. But I like to keep that extra amount for the steam to be able to have room inside of the dough to expand, or else we're gonna have a lot more cracks in the dough as it's baking. And since it is Valentine's, I thought to be creative, and normally with puff pastry we need to have some slits for the steam to come out, or else you're gonna, like I said, it's gonna explode and it's not gonna be as nice at the end. It's gonna be as delicious, but not maybe as nice. So I took just razor blade, sorry, and I'm gonna try and create a heart on this. So this is the first time I'm gonna do the heart. This is one, and I will leave the bottom attached, so when it's baking, this part it's gonna rise and but stay attached to the dough. So since it's Valentine's, we need 2 hearts. I'm gonna make another one. So I will do it over here. And maybe just we'll see what's gonna come out from that little design. Now for this, to give it a little bit brightness, I'm gonna glaze it with egg wash. So let me get my brush. I'm gonna just paint this dough, and at this point it's ready to be put in a baking pan and into a preheated oven for about until this dough is golden and nice colored. The meat is gonna be just perfectly cooked when the dough is baked. Okay, now I have my pork tenderloin in the oven baking, and it's time to take it out, and I wanted to show you how it looks as I am taking it out of the oven. Ta-da! This is it. That's how it looks. Now this needs to sit for 10-15 minutes before we actually attempt to cut through it, because all the juices that they were released from the pork tenderloin need to be reabsorbed and cooled down and stop that bubbly boiling period, so we can have a tender and juicy cut of meat at the end. So we'll meet again when it's ready to be cut. See you. Here's the end result of the pork tenderloin enveloped in this beautiful puff pastry with wine and caper sauce. It's time to cut through it and reveal what we're gonna find. Let's do it. Now the edges, they were empty, as you remember, because I needed some space for the steam to escape without ruining the crust, the puff pastry. So here I'm gonna cut through it, and then I'm gonna flip them so you can see better how it looks and how it's perfectly baked and with still juicy, not overcooked cut of meat. And all the surrounding is that caper wine mustard sauce that you're gonna really enjoy. Happy Valentine's.